we go. Now, last week I started on completing the square, which was, I think I did 3 problems. Somebody check on your notes. I think we did 3 problems, and I think I just started with a being not equal to 1. I think I just started one like that. So we're going to go from there. I had to pull a starter off my Bobcat yesterday, so my hands are kind of, I did wash my hands and take a shower, but I still got some grease stains on my hands, so that ain't going to hurt nobody. I just wanted to let you know that I do, I do try to stay clean, but it may not look it today. Sometimes when you pull a pull something off of an old tractor or a piece of equipment, that grease, it stays on you. Even though you wash it, it stays on you. All right, I'll shut up. So let's go with x squared plus 5x minus 2 is equal to 0. And that one's dead. So you should be able to see x squared plus 5x. I went ahead and set it equal to 0. The problem would look something like this. F of x is equal to x squared plus 5x minus 2. That's what it would look like if they gave it to you. And remember, to find your x-intercepts, you set y equal to 0, which I did right here. Okay. And now we're going to complete the square, because 1 times 2, if you add those 2 products, they will never give you 5. 1 and 2 will give you a 3 and a 1. So this is not factorable. So you're going to have to depend on the complete the square method. So here we go. Let's do it. First of all, I'm going to move 2. X squared plus 5x plus blank is equal to 2 plus blank. Now I'm going to complete the square. And I'm going to do that in my pink, because this is the important part of completing the square. I take that number, 5, I divide it by 2, always divide it by 2, and square it. And that right there is completing the square. That's what equals completing the square. When you do this, you are completing the square. And that's equal to 25 over 4. You put that there, and you put that there. And of course, at this point, most of you will shut down because you got a fraction in the problem, and that's what y'all do. Y'all automatically shut down. Over here, we've got shortcut number 1. You're either going to have shortcut number 1 or shortcut number 2 based on that sign. This is shortcut number 1. So that means we're going to have x plus 5 halves quantity squared. And that is going back to, this is where we're going back to chapter 1 and 2, and we're getting it in the horizontal shift and the vertical shift. So we got to change this into 8 fourths plus 25 fourths, and x plus 5 halves quantity squared is equal to, well, 25 plus 8, I have no earthly idea. 33, 32. Which one is it? 25 plus 8, 33. Y'all check my math. And of course, my blinds are messed up again, so I've got to shout out. I'll fix that in just a second. All right, so that's one problem with having dang old windows all in the breakfast room. It's kind of hard to keep the sun out. All right, so now we're back at chapter 2, and this, let me get my handy dandy highlighters. This is your horizontal shift, and this is my vertical shift. Now we automatically know, I don't know why my video is freezing up. It looks like it's freezing up a bit. We also know that this is my y-intercept. So now we're going to continue. Now there's three things we got to do here. I'm going to write this on the next page, and we're going to go in our 3 different directions. So x plus 5/2 quantity squared is equal to 33/4. Now one direction, we're going to solve for x. One direction, we're going to put in intercept form, because the homework and the test sometimes wants you to put it in intercept form. And over here, we're going to write the vertex down. So these two are the easiest. So, oh, that's bothering me. Go ahead and do that. I got to fix this blind. Oh, the things I do for y'all. And I'm so unappreciated. Appreciated. I feel so unappreciated. All right, so intercept form will be f of x is equal to x plus 5/2 quantity squared minus 33/4. And that's like for test and homework. I could care less about this, okay? Because to me, all you got to do is find the vertex. The vertex is the opposite of this, negative 5/2, and the opposite of this. If you find the vertex here, you take the opposite of this, which you learned in chapter 2, the horizontal shift is always the opposite. So that's negative 5/2, and you just bring this down. Now this is the way I ask you to do it. This is the way the homework's going to ask you to do it. And since I take my questions from the homework and put them on the test, the homework and the test may ask you to do these 2 things when all I ask you to do is that. Okay? Now I'm going to solve. Now this is where y'all get, y'all get mired up in the mud right here, because this is a fraction and y'all supposed to have anxiety attacks because of fractions. So x plus 5/2 quantity squared is equal to 33/4. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root of everything. I'm going to get rid of that square. That's x plus 5/2 is equal to the square root of 33/2. Now remember, in the last class, I told y'all that you're going to get 2 or 3 different answers with that square root of 33. There's the approximate, and then there's the exact, and how you do it is up to the directions of the homework or the test. Okay? Most of the time they want exact, meaning they want the radical in there. Exact would be x is equal to the square root of 33 minus 5/2. That would be exact. And remember, this is a positive or negative. So that would be positive square root of 33 minus 5, negative square root of 33 minus 5. So you got two different answers here. The other thing you could do was approximate. Approximate means use your calculator or use your head. What do you mean use your head? Well, the square root of 36 is 6. So I'm thinking 33 would be like 5.8. So I'm going to say x is equal to positive or negative 5.8 minus 5. Somebody check me and tell me what the square root of 33 is, so I can make a note if I missed it. What's square root of 33? Somebody tell me. 5.74. Well, I'm off a little bit. I'm sorry. 5.7. Okay. That is approximate. Now I can go further and I can say, okay, 5.7 minus 5 is 0.7. Now what's half of 70 cents? 35 cents, Hubert. You're right. And there's one x-intercept. Negative 5.7 minus 5 is negative 10.7. And somebody tell me what's half of $10.70. $5.35, Hubert. That's right, class. Negative 5.35. That's your other x-intercept. So these are the three possible answers. This is exact. This is approximate. And this is Hubert. This is what I want, but people in Hades want ice water. I like this because that way you get to see what your two x-intercepts are, and when you are graphing all of this, it helps. So there's your three possible answers for your x-intercepts or solutions. X-intercepts don't sound sophisticated enough, so they call them solutions. Now, what do you do with all of this? Well, we've got to take, I'm going to write everything down over here on the next page. First of all, our y-intercept that I put in pink is 0, negative 2. We got that from the first part of the problem. Didn't even have to calculate anything. Our vertex is negative 5/2, comma, negative 33/4. And our x-intercepts, one is 0.35, comma 0, and the other is negative 5.35, comma 0. Now, what are we going to do with all that? We're going to sketch a graph. So I'm going to take my handy dandy ruler I beat my kids with, and I'm going to draw a graph. There it is. Now, of course, if you got graph paper, it would be great, but I'm just showing y'all how to sketch. And anyway, this is sketching a graph. So sketching is different from drawing a graph or plotting a graph. This is just sketching. So 0, negative 2 is our 1, 2. That's our y-intercept. Our x-intercepts are, I'll do x in green. Okay, there's our x-intercepts. So 0.35 is right here. There's 1, so 0.35 be right in there. Email. And 5.35, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right in there. And then our vertex is negative 2.5. I'll do the vertex in orange. negative 2.5. 1, 2.5. And 4 will go in there 8 times, so it's going to be like 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's what our parabola looks like. Don't judge my drawings, okay? Now, since x is to the second, and it's not, there's no radical and there's no fraction, okay? So since we don't have a radical or a fraction in the function, the domain is all real numbers. Range, let's see, that's our y values. So whatever number that is, that's negative 33/4 to infinity. Decreasing from negative infinity to negative 2.5, negative 5/2, and increasing from negative 5/2 to infinity. And of course, the line of symmetry always goes through the vertex. Line of symmetry is x is equal to negative 5/2. In case they asked you that on the test. And that's what you should be able to do. Now, all of this, and I'm going to use a blue marker, all of this right here is pretty much in chapter 2. That's all chapter 2 stuff. So that's why I give the chapter 3 test and the chapter 2 test at the same time, because it's overlapping each other. So this is chapter 2. Completing the square is chapter 3. That's chapter 3. That's chapter 3. Okay, so I'm going to leave the floor open now for questions. Now, I covered the material so well for that one. That's a review. That was like the last question we did. So nobody has a question. I just covered the material so well.
I got a question.
All right.
I'm trying to understand the range, negative 33/4.
Okay.
The parentheses on the side and the bracket on the left side. The range is the red dot where the line of symmetry, the vertex. It's reaching down all the way to that orange red dot, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's in other words, let me go through and explain that right quick, because I know there's somebody out there that don't understand decreasing and increasing. They're just too scared to say it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a picture, and I'm going to make it kind of like this, and I'm going to draw a parabola like this. Okay. Now, since these are two arrowheads here, these arrowheads, when you got an arrowhead, an arrowhead. I didn't say arrowhead. Powdersville, Belton. Okay. This one is negative infinity, and this one is positive infinity. Well, when you have arrowheads on a function, then chances are your domain is going to be all real numbers, because the domain, remember when I told you about functions, what is the domain? That's the ice machine. I mean, the water going in the ice machine. So unless you have a radical, f of x is equal to a radical or f of x is equal to a function, I mean a rational like x plus 2. Unless you have one of those two, your domain is going to be all real numbers. Well, Hubert, what's the domain? Well, that's the water in the ice machine. So if this arrowhead corresponds to this arrowhead, and this arrowhead corresponds to this arrowhead, so that means all the x values you can use for this function. So the domain is all real numbers. And we'll get to the, so domain, since we don't have this, we don't have f of x is equal to this or this, then the domain is all real numbers. Now we'll get to the ones that don't have domain and range. We'll get to those later, okay? But right now, if it's an x squared or x to the third or x to the fourth or x to the fifth or x to the sixth, unless the teacher or the directions tell you different, the domain of those functions are always going to be all real numbers. The range is the ice. Okay, so remember, let me do this. Remember, the domain is the water in the ice machine. The range is the ice. So what y values will work with this function? Well, again, the arrowheads play. If you have arrowheads on a function, then that arrowhead not only applies to the horizontal, but it also applies to this vertical arrowhead right here, which is called positive infinity. And this arrowhead down here is called negative infinity. Well, this one's going up, up, up. This one's going up, up, up. So it only applies to this one. So your R value, your output or your ice, if I plug in negative 100 gallons of water, I'm going to get positive gallons of ice. If I plug in positive 100 gallons of water, I'm going to get positive 100 whatever gallons of ice. So my function will spit out ice from this vertex right here to infinity. Now, when you touch a number, that means that you're going to put a bracket on it. Let's say that's -2. Okay, so my range is going to be from -2, that I include because it touches -2, to infinity. Infinity always gets a parenthesis. Negative and positive infinity always gets a parenthesis.
I see why I was looking at it with the naming convention, like x goes before y, x comma y. That's why I was misunderstanding. Okay.
Yeah, this is called interval notation. You read it from left to right.
Got it.
Okay, now increasing and decreasing, which way do we read? We read from left to right, unless you're from the Middle East, Masalama. Okay, so I'm going to put a plane here. Now, in this, hold on, Miss Ellis, I'll get to you in just a minute. In this scenario, this plane is on 2 dimensions. Okay, we don't have a third dimension on this paper, okay? It's not coming out at us. All right, so we have 2 dimensions. Those 2 dimensions are linear and vertical. Okay, now the linear, that's x, that's these values right here. And then the airplane is going down on this side. So if you're reading that plane, what's that plane doing vertically on this side? It's going down to this point right here. And then what's happening to that plane from here to here? It's going up. Okay, so how do I say this? Well, from negative infinity to, let's say 0, this is 0 right here. The plane is decreasing. From 0 to positive infinity, it's what? It's increasing. Now, the reason I'm showing you these 4 again is because there's only one that's in terms of y. Which one is the only one in terms of y? The range. So the rest of them have got to be in terms of x, which is the green line right here. Okay. All right. All right. Miss Ellis, do you understand vertical and horizontal shifts? You can either type the inner. Okay, you understand vertical and horizontal shifts. Do you understand? I guess tell me where you're not understanding. Did you understand the mechanics behind completing the square? The composite function. Oh, you talking about composite like F composed of G and G composed of F?
Yes, I don't understand any of that. And I was
Okay.
doing good until I got to that part, but then I'm just completely in the dark.
Okay, well, I tell you what you need to do before we get further, you need to send me the questions with Ask My Instructor. Are you familiar with Ask My Instructor?
Yes.
Okay, send me those questions ASAP.
Okay.
I need to get those because I needed to go over them with you, and I'll go over them with the class too. How are you on what I'm doing right now?
That I can get enough to get through it. Like I understand it enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I understand this part enough.
we just started completing the square the other day, I think Friday. So this is just I'm reviewing this right here. This one right here this is just like one we did Friday. All right. So you're not too far behind on this as far as understanding it because we just started it. Okay, and we got probably 7 or 8 more examples to go before everybody is fluent with completing the square. So you need to send me those problems with the composition, and I'll go over those when I get them. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So next. So right now we've covered when A is equal to 1. And we've covered when B is not even. B is not even. Okay, so A is equal to 1. That's f of x is equal to x squared plus 2x minus 7. Okay, A is equal to 1. And we've covered B, f of x, is equal to x squared minus 3x plus 6. And B is not even. What else is next, Hubert? Well, what if you have a negative A? What if you have f of x is equal to negative x squared plus 2x minus 7? I'm just making them up, okay? Here, so right now, we've covered Friday, between Friday and today. Friday, we covered mostly this, okay? And then at the end of class Friday, I introduced this, and we just did one today, with that being a 5 instead of a 2 or a 4 or 6. Okay, so what happens when you have this guy? Well, you just quit and drop out of school. No, you got to factor it out. So let's do one. F of x is equal to negative x squared. And I'll give you an even one because the even one, I'm going to give you an even one and an odd one. So let's do minus 4x plus, or let's see, plus 7. All right, so that's what you're going to be given on a test. And the question will say, it'll find vertex or find the x-intercepts or sketch the graph or some kind of directions. It don't matter because I just show you how to do everything. So the first thing I'm going to do is set equal to 0. So negative x squared minus 4x plus 7 is equal to 0. And now I'm going to do like I always do, get rid of the 7, move it over. So negative x squared minus 4x plus blank is equal to negative 7 plus blank. Okay, now I got to address my negative. So I'm going to mark that in pink because that is the next thing we address. What about completing the square, Hubert? You can't complete the square until this is a 1. That has to be a positive 1 before you can complete the square. And I'm going to write that over here in pink. A has to be equal to positive 1 before you can complete the square. And you need to put that to memory because that's what's going to get you on a test. You're going to try to complete the square when you have a negative right here, and that don't work. So I'm going to factor out a negative 1. So factor out a negative 1. And what happens to this? Well, it becomes x squared. And that becomes 4x. And this is nothing, so you just put nothing because you don't know what that is yet. Now there's one trick. If you factor out a negative right here, then you got to multiply that same negative by this number right there. Now I'm going to put that in a green highlight because you need to make a note of that. Whatever you factor out here, if it's a negative 1 or negative 8 or negative 200, you got to multiply it over here by this blank. So if I factor out a negative 200 right here, then I'm going to put a negative 200 right here to multiply by this blank. Now, I could go through the derivation and show you why, but that would be totally useless, okay? So I'm going to tell you to just trust me and take my word for it, that whenever you factor out something over here on the left, you multiply it by this blank over here and take my word for it. Okay, now I can complete the square. Now I'm going to write this in green. Whatever you factor out, multiply by right-hand side blank. And that's the one, draw a little arrow right there. Whatever you factor out, you always multiply by that right side blank. I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea, so I'm just going to put there, factor out. Whatever you factor out. So now what? Now we can complete the square. So I'm going to take my handy dandy yellow marker because y'all bitch about it. And I'm going to factor, I'm going to complete the square with that 4. So here we go. 4 divided by 2 and square it. And that's going to be 2 squared is what? 4. Put a 4 there. Put a 4 there. I think I do color. I think I do good with my colors. There we go. Now I've got shortcut number 1 right here. So that's going to be negative x plus 2 quantity squared is equal to negative 7 plus a negative 4 is negative what? Oh, negative 11, Hubert. That's right, class. Thank you for interacting with me. I appreciate it. Y'all suck. How was your weekend? Thank you. Appreciate it. Long. I watched Hannibal Lecter all weekend. I decided to watch Hannibal Lecter all weekend, so I watched all of the Hannibal Lecter movies. I'm a movie nut, so I like to watch movies. Busy. Miss Maxon was busy. Miss Ellis had a long weekend. Mr. Mulata had a tiring weekend. Well, I had a mechanic in the weekend. I had to take parts. I got tractors. I got 2 or 3 tractors that I got to work on, and I got a Bobcat and when you work on a Bobcat, that's aggravating because everything is so compact. And Miss Davis worked all weekend. Where do you work, Miss Davis?
I work at Walmart pharmacy.
Bless your heart. Which one? Which Walmart?
The TR one.
Traveler's Rest?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I worked at Walmart. I worked at 396 right before I went to Marine Corps. I was working at Walmart and bouncing at Wendell's, and that's when Wendell's was on Highway 21 North. But I was working, boy, and I loved working at Walmart. But that was different. That was a different time. Back then, Walmart was like Target is now. So give it a few years, Target will be like Walmart is. I feel sorry for you. I wouldn't want to work at Walmart now, Miss Davis. You're doing good. Get your education and get out of there. But the pharmacy is a good place to work. So,
yeah, the pharmacy is better than like
oh gosh.
the store.
Yeah, it is. Got people running around half naked in the store. Lord of mercy. You ever seen people at Walmart.com? Oh my gosh.
I think it's a new trend with the older guys, our older patients. They have the button-up shirts, but they only button the bottom button. So the whole top is open.
They Mr. T in it, huh?
I don't know. I think it's a new fashion trend though.
Oh, it is? Oh, I think I'm going to be quiet. So I have no Hannibal Lecter fans out there. I figured I would at least got a comment out of, oh, that's the way we roll. Okay. Oh, that's the way to roll. Mr. T in it. Okay, Miss Ellis, you're a Hannibal Lecter fan? I watched all 5 movies. I love Hannibal Lecter when he's Anthony Hopkins. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm a 80s person too. I love the 80s. All right, now that I got y'all to interact with me a little bit, let's finish this problem. Now I'm going to go over to the next page. I'm going to rewrite this one. Negative x plus 2 quantity squared equals negative 11. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to solve for x. And I'm going to go right here and I'm going to put it intercept form. Now remember, I'm only doing intercept form because the book wants you to put it in that form. And over here, my vertex. Well, the vertex is pretty simple. Opposite of 2 is negative 2. Opposite of negative 11 is positive 11. F of x is equal to negative x plus 2 squared plus 11. And the vertex is the opposite of this. And bring this down, which should match that. Now, negative x plus 2 squared is equal to negative 11. And that one's dead. I got a bunch of dead ones this morning. So that's going to give me, I'm going to divide by negative 1. X plus 2 quantity squared is equal to 11. Take the square root of both sides. X plus 2 is equal to the square root of 11. I'm going to go ahead and do my exact. X is equal to the square root of x. I'm sorry, square root of 11. I don't know where I got that from. Minus 2. All right, that's my exact answer. The square root of 11, well, the square root of 9 is 3. So I'm going to say it's 3.2. Somebody check me and put it in the comments if I'm close or not. X is equal to positive or negative 3.2 minus 2. That's my approximate answers. And then,
you have a work email.
yeah, I've heard about the, let's see, 3.3. Okay, 3.3. I was reading the comments. Since it is the season for it, what is the season for it? Hannibal Lecter? You lost me, Miss Bronson. I've been watching a Netflix series about Hannibal. I wondered about that because that would be, oh, Halloween, yeah. Halloween, I love Michael Myers too. I love the Rob Zombie Michael Myers. I like him better. Anyway, I'm a horror. I love horror movies. I don't get into Freddy Krueger though, and I don't get into house invasions and the Purge. I didn't like that. Yeah. I love Rob Zombie's music too. All right. So here we go. That's going to be 3.3 minus 2 is 1.3. So positive 1.3 is one x-intercept. And then negative 3.3 minus 2 is negative 5.3. And that is my other x-intercept. So I feel good about myself. So I'm going to take my ruler. So I don't have to put smokestacks on my pickup truck because I feel good about myself. All right, so here we go. My y-intercept, let's go back to the y-intercept. And I'm going to use lavender. My y-intercept is negative 7, or 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's my y-intercept. My x-intercept is 1.3. And I'm going to use black. And negative 5.3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My vertex is negative 2, positive 11. Well, is that right? Well, let's go back to chapter 2 material. Let's go back to chapter 2. What does chapter 2 tell us about this thing right here? What does that tell us? Because that is a negative 1. A is equal to negative 1. What does chapter 1 tell us about A equal negative 1? What does that tell us? Somebody tell me. I didn't get into Freddy. You know Freddy Krueger was an actual person that killed people? You have to look it up. Back in the early 1900s. He was like the Jack the Ripper of kids. You have to
Oh,
look it
yeah.
up.
I knew that.
No, you did.
Yeah.
Wow. Not many
I'm
people
40.
know
I
that.
know a lot.
Well, you don't look 40. I'm supposed to
Thank
say that.
you
You know
very
that.
much.
I'm supposed to say that. All right. So somebody tell me what A is equal to. Come on. You're right, Miss Bronson. Come on. Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based on a very, very screwed up person. I didn't get into Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I've watched it, but I don't get into it. I get into Friday the 13th and Michael Myers. I still think they need to make a movie called Friday the 13th and Halloween and put Michael and Jason against each other. Okay, so if A is equal to a negative number, what does that mean about the parabola? There, Miss Yarborough. Tatiana, did I say that right? I'm assuming that is female. Miss Yarborough. Okay.
Tatiana.
Okay. How do you say it?
Tatiana.
Tatiana. You are correct. The function is upside down. Concave down. So when A is equal to -1, y'all learned that in chapter 2. That means concave down. So now, domain, all real numbers. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to put domain, all real numbers, because it is a squared function. Domain, all real numbers. Range is equal to -infinity, right here, -infinity to what? To 11. Increasing, my plane is going up. Increasing from -infinity to -2. And decreasing, my plane is going down from -2 to infinity. And of course, the line of symmetry always goes to the vertex at -2. And again, we have just done another level. Now, hold on a minute. I got to make sure we got 2 minutes left. No, and I'll tell you why. And Mr. Parisi, you just asked a good question. I always get that question, so I was waiting on it. Why? Well, when Michael Jordan goes up for a layup, when he from the top of the key, there's a point in space.
I need your consent on a few items to continue.
Okay, I don't know why that just turned on. Damn Russians. It's them damn Russians' fault. And my phone. All right. When Michael Jordan goes up for a layup, he has to come down. Okay? At one point in space, and this is true in physics, at one point in space, Michael Jordan is actually what? Why is he flying at that one point in space called the vertex? Why is he flying? Can somebody answer that? Because he's neither going up or what? He's not rising or falling. Good, because he's Michael Jordan, of course, the greatest of all time. But at one point in space, if you throw a ball up in the air, at one point in space, that ball is not going up or down. It stops for a millisecond, and it neither goes up or down. That's called flying. Okay? So at this point right here, you're neither going up. I don't know how to spell neither because I always want to put the I and the E. I can't. I think that's right. Neither up or down. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. If you are neither going up or down, then you can't do brackets because you're not going either way. So that's why when you're doing increasing and decreasing, you can't use brackets on something that is neither going up or down. Does that help you out? Who asked that one? Does that help out? Got it. Good. So when you're doing increasing and decreasing will always get parentheses on a parabola. All right, how do we feel? We feel good about ourselves? I hope so. At least we learned that demented people like horror movies. I'm just kidding. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the presentation and I'm going to stop the recording and